Hey guys, long time no see. I hope you enjoyed your holidays, Christmas, Yule, New Year's, some but not necessarily all of the others if you celebrate those. I wanted to talk to you today about the speech Donald Trump gave the other night about the border and immigration and the wall and the shutdown. And I appreciate that he's doing all of this, you know, the shutdown and pushing for the wall and the speech. I did find the actual speech a little bit weak, and the main reason that I found it weak was focusing on illegal immigration exclusively while still rolling out the welcome for legal immigration. And the reason that's a little bit weak is because legal immigration can be as much cause for concern, if not more, than illegal immigration. You know, when you have illegal immigrants, let's say a family of 4, let's say 2 parents and 2 children come into the country and they're doing, you know, traditional migrant labor type jobs. The parents are working for minimum wage or sometimes even less than minimum wage, which would be like landscaping, picking fruit, house cleaning, hanging drywall, stuff like that. And the children are going to school at a cost of $15,000 each or $12,000 each. So, you know, in this case, $25,000 to $30,000 a year. The parents may not be making that, or not much more than that, let alone paying that in taxes. They certainly don't pay anything close to that in taxes. And so that family of illegal immigrants is a huge net fiscal burden. And Trump talked about all of this stuff, but, you know, 2 things about that. First of all, legal immigrants may be eligible for more benefits and services sooner, and they're eligible to apply for citizenship and subsequently to vote, which means they can be more costly and disruptive than illegal immigrants. And also, none of this fiscal stuff addresses the main issue, which is that it fundamentally alters the demographics of the country in ways that we may not like, and that has effects that we may not like. And some people like to talk about values and institutions instead of demographics, but you can't really disentangle these issues, because it was our ancestors who created the values and the institutions that we like. And we are the ones who value those institutions today and maintain them. And these other people we're bringing in masse do not have the same values as us. And they do not protect and maintain the institutions that we value. They try to change them according to their values. And they don't uphold our values. They attenuate our values. They contradict our values, and they try to impose their own values. Okay, so it's really not possible to disentangle these issues of values and institutions and demographics. And fundamentally altering the demographics of the country is going to fundamentally alter the country in unpredictable and you know, ways that we don't necessarily like. So that's a fundamental issue, and focusing on little things like fiscal burden, while, you know, and crime, that kind of stuff may be important, but it's not the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is, you know, we want all the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. You know, not anyone else's posterity who happens to come along, but our posterity. And, you know, if we're filling up the country with other people's posterity, you know, there's less country left for our posterity. You know, that's just a fact. There are non-zero-sum aspects to that. You know, there are surpluses generated by bringing people from areas which have, you know, worse values and worse rules and worse institutions to our area that has better values and better rules and better institutions. There's some non-zero-sum, you know, positive-sum benefits to that that can be shared as surpluses, but, you know, there are some zero-sum aspects to that, and also some negative-sum aspects to that. If they're degrading the values and institutions that allow them to, you know, create those surpluses, then, you know, they're degrading those for everybody. And so, you know, you can't just say it's a positive-sum transaction when there's also zero-sum and negative-sum stuff going on too. It's not as simple as some of these people argue. So, you know, as far as the wall goes, there has been a lot of criticism of the wall because it's not 100% effective. And, you know, liberals make all these snarky jokes about ladders and tunnels and whatever. it's not going to be 100% effective. It doesn't have to be. No security measure is ever 100% effective. The only point of having any security whatsoever, because it can all be circumvented, is just to increase the cost and difficulty of circumventing it. And it doesn't have to be 100%, because nothing is 100%. But as long as it's increasing the cost and the difficulty of circumventing it, it's doing its job. And so, that's all it has to do. It doesn't have to be 100% effective. But it's also a signal. First of all, it's an unwelcome mat that just lets people know that they're not welcome. And second of all, it signals a commitment to bear the cost not only of the wall, but the other costs of securing the border, both inside and outside the wall. Because there's other measures that go along with that. There's other components of border security. And so paying the cost of the wall is signaling a commitment to bear those other costs as well. So it serves a signaling function. It does serve a function, a deterrence function, in terms of, even though it's not 100% effective, it is a certain percentage effective, and that may be worth what it costs. And finally, the joke about Mexico paying for it. I don't think anybody expected, certainly nobody on Trump's side, that Mexico was literally going to pay for it, or literally going to build it. No, nobody ever expected that. Nobody understood that to be his meaning. We understood it to mean they were going to pay for it one way or another, and it was going to cost them somehow or another. That they're imposing these costs on us through the mass migration of their underclasses or whatever. We're going to start imposing some costs on them in order to offset the cost of the wall and preventing that. Okay, it doesn't mean they're literally going to cut us a check, or they're literally going to hire the workers to build the wall. All right, it just means they're going to pay for it in some way, whether they want to or not, directly or indirectly. Now, regarding the shutdown, there was a quip that Trump made, which I found incredibly amusing, where he said, it mainly affects Democrats, Democrats in the federal government, Democratic, whatever, government workers. I don't remember his exact words, but that was his meaning. And that was hilarious to me, and I hope it is to you, because, it's probably true. We don't know how many federal employees vote Democrat or support Democrats versus Republicans. We do know that they overwhelmingly donate Democrat. And Democrat or Republican, they're going to be aligned with the deep state. They're going to be aligned with the status quo. They're going to be aligned with the powers that be, because the bureaucratic class, they don't want reform. They don't want disruption. They just want their little apple cart that they've always had. And they want things to just go along as usual. So they're going to be aligned with, the party that's, they're going to be aligned with the deep state in either party, but they're also going to be aligned with the party that promises to protect and to expand the public sector, which has traditionally been the Democrats. Whereas the Republicans are more likely to propose cuts or reforms or reorganizations or things that sound like a lot of work and maybe a threat to job security and income and benefits, right? So, of course, these people are going to be aligned with the deep state, who Trump has set himself up against. We'll see how effectively, but that's his rhetoric. And of course, that's going to tend to align them with the Democrats. And so if, government employees are hurting because of this shutdown, those are Democrat government employees primarily. I think we can assume. I think it's safe to assume. And, why restrain yourself from harming your adversary? People who aren't going to vote for you, people who aren't going to support you, people who aren't going to help you, who are just going to get in the way, who are going to try to cause trouble, who are maybe going to consume and destroy everything that you love, who support the absolute opposite of all of your values, whatever the case may be. Why are you going to restrain yourself for them, for their benefit? And, just the cavalier dismissal, it's Democrat government employees, hilarious, because we really need to re-examine our commitments to principles that tie our hands in these ways that kind of make no sense. We really need to re-examine those. And, it sounds like Trump doesn't have that particular hang-up, per se, of harming Democrats or Democrat bureaucrats. we had a border crisis a few years ago. In 2014, we had the migrants at the border, the unaccompanied minors. And that was where all these kids were showing up without parents, without guardians, without adult supervision at the U.S. border. And, the expectation was, or the assumption seemed to be, that we were just going to take them in and care for them as our own. And this is a textbook case of brood parasitism. Brood parasitism. It's like what the cuckoo bird does in the wild. The cuckoo bird lays its egg in another bird's nest. And, when that cuckoo egg hatches, it not only takes the food that the parent birds are bringing, not its parents, but the adopted host parents that it's parasitizing their nest. It not only takes the food that they're bringing, but it actually kicks the eggs and the other chicks out of the nest, so it gets all of that. And it's called brood parasitism, and that's what they were trying to do with these unaccompanied minors. They were trying to brood parasitize us by sending these children to raise as our own, at our expense, instead of our children. And, that's fundamentally what they're doing with this caravan as well, that was just largely turned away at the border. With or without parents, it's the same idea. They're bringing the kids to get a share of our inheritance, because there are some zero-sum and some negative-sum aspects to this migration. It's not all positive-sum. They're trying to get a share of our inheritance. So it's not a noble motivation. It's not a benevolent motivation. It's a fundamentally parasitic, acquisitive, aggressive, invasive motivation. And, again, when you point out that this convoy, this caravan, is an invading column of alien parasites, you also get the mockery and derision, because people, point out that they don't have guns, they don't have uniforms. They're not willing to accept that these people are more cost than benefit in whatever sense. But even if they did, they would argue that there's a fundamental difference between this and, let's say an invading army. Now, this is an aside, but just because I like picking on libertarians, if you're a libertarian, you are obligated to support and defend an invading army, even if they are armed and uniformed, because the right to keep and bear arms is also, universal. And the right to self-expression and to wear what you want is universal. So the fact that they're armed and uniformed, doesn't invalidate their individual right to cross your border, and doesn't make it fair for you to speculate about the motives of these individuals as a group. But getting back to the topic at hand, people will laugh at you for saying that this column is, an invading army, just because it has no guns or no uniforms. But basically what it's more like is a band of barbarians, a band of looting, plundering barbarians, and they don't need weapons because our people will help them. Our values will help them. Our principles will help them. And that's why we need to fundamentally reevaluate our values and our principles, which lead us to admit these plundering alien enemies into our midst, and to assist them with the plundering so that they don't even have to have weapons in order to do it. They don't even have to go to the trouble and the risk of honest plunder, like in the past, where you raid and you plunder honestly with violence and weapons. Like, they don't even have to go to that trouble. They can just sneak in, and our people and our principles and our values will help them with the plundering, so they don't even have to go to the trouble and expense and risk anymore. And fundamentally what this is all about, though, is how many Democrats to import. Because the immigration issue, whether it's legal or illegal, a vast majority of these people vote Democrat. And so that's why the Democrats are so adamant about these issues. That's why they're so disingenuous. That's why they try to paint any questions or criticism about immigration issues as, the vilest evil and the most taboo, because they're trying to conceal that by sleight of hand, this importation of Democrats and altering the balance of power so they can impose a hostile and parasitic agenda on the American people without their approval. And, I'm going to stop there, but I'll post a follow-up with some more commentary on my Patreon for my patrons, and Links in the description below. Nice talking to you again.